Just a little woo woo.
Welcome back to the Absolute Reason podcast. This is where we further discover and explore spiritual intelligence. And the way we go about exploring spiritual intelligence is to be guided by one pinnacle, simple question that will lead us all the way through the discovery of our spiritual intelligence. Now, this question is simple. It is, what is a human being? Isn't that simple? And yet, if you had to stop and think about it, you kind of get stuck after the first two sentences, even though deep inside you feel I am so much more than the description I just gave to a human being. And that is because you are so much more. When we begin to think about artificial intelligence, for instance, so many people out there can't wait. They're itching and scratching. They're ready to go and put or integrate technology into their physical body. And the reason why they do that or even contemplate it is, quite frankly, you have no idea the power you hold as a human being. And I would say that that is by design. And that is why I want to explore our spiritual intelligence. Because I am convinced as soon as we as humanity begin to view ourselves as a spiritual being and the technology that we have access to, we will realize instantly that AI, artificial intelligence, does nothing but copy a human being. And why is that? What do you copy? You copy that which is greater than you. We are greater than machines. You do not need to connect to one or implement it into your system in order to become something greater, to become that great individual that you feel stirring deep inside of you. You don't need to connect to technology because technology copies you. You are spectacular. And today we are going to explore the 7 planes of existence. These are the planes that makes you a spectacular individual. But without you knowing and understanding these 7 planes and how they reflect back at you, creating your reality and bringing formless into form, until you realize these 7 planes of existence, you will forevermore remain a slave to the cause and effect that we see in the physical. It is important that we explore the more subtle aspects of who we are. And that is exactly what we will be doing today. So, how are we going to begin to explore this? Well, we're going to pick up where we left off with the previous podcast. And that is a discussion between Tucker Carlson and Michael Knowles, where they discussed the Minneapolis shooter who shot into a church of people and children having mass. And this individual wrote a manifesto. And this entire podcast between Michael and Tucker is about this manifesto. And as they work through the manifesto, they pinpoint and observe many spiritual concepts, which I really give them naughty badges for. We need somebody to point out, intellectuals, to point out spiritual observations in order for me, this crazy, freaky philosopher, to pick up those observations and then to delve deeper into them. And by delving deeper into them, we evolve from observation alone. We are observing a spiritual concept and event. We will evolve from that into understanding and integrating the spiritual knowledge that is hidden in the undercurrent of the observations. As soon as we start gaining knowledge of this spiritual undercurrent, it's like an unseen physics that's at play. I personally call it sacred physics, just to give it a name and a category. As soon as we begin to understand that sacred physics, we move from slave to co-creator. We begin to see the real from the unreal. And considering the events we have now, this is critical for humanity. So I hope you stick around, and then let's first look and watch that little bit of the video of Michael and Tucker, just to set us up for the discussion, because we're going to get down and dirty today into the 7 planes of existence. There's a reason why it's taken me a while to make this video. I had to dive deep into it in order to understand it enough to explain it to you guys. And that is what we're going to do now. So, with my very technologically advanced approach, let us watch the video. Just a little snip. No need to worry. Quick, quick, quick. I'm going to watch with you. Alright. So, let's do that.
The fact that he drew a picture, and that is one of the few things I saw from the manifesto, pretty clear rendition too. I mean, he was a decent artist of himself looking in the mirror and a demon staring back at him. I mean, that seems like a page 1 story.
Yes.
This guy was possessed, or at least influenced by, in him was some supernatural force causing him to murder kids.
And think about the two opposing.
I'm going to stop it there before Michael comes with his opposing forces. All right. So in the manifesto, there's a picture sketched by the shooter. And this sketch, and he's quite right, it's a pretty good sketch. And the sketch is of him standing in front of a mirror. And what stares back at him, this is now the shooter at the Minneapolis shooting, who shot into a church of individuals who were having mass. He killed a whole lot of children in the process. Now this individual, when he was looking into this mirror, this sketch he drew on his manifesto, it was a demon, this monster, grrr, staring back at him. And Michael and Tucker, the way they perceive this, is that a demonic force has overwhelmed the individual and is now invading him and forcing him and influencing him in a very dark way to convince him to go and shoot up a church. So what I do in this podcast is I take that observation of a demonic reflection looking back at you as an individual. I take that observation, I go into the Bible, and I go research what in this case would be reflection. And once I've researched the Bible, I cross-pollinate the knowledge I have gained from the Vedas. And I take that knowledge, cross-pollinate it into the Bible, and through that cross-pollination, we gain insight that will blow your hair back. This is exactly what happened in the previous podcast, where we realized that we as humanity, we have the name of God as the sound of our breath. How did I come to that conclusion? Well, it is from the Vedas. There's a Sanskrit word that is hum or aham, but it is also taught that that is the sound that your breath makes. Hum, hum, hum. And what aham means is I am. And in the Bible, God in the burning bush refers to himself when Moses asks him, "What is your name? Who do I say sent me?" And God replies, he says, "I am." That's the end of the sentence. So I breathe the name of God. I am. So there already we have a very clear indication that we as humanity have a very unique divine connection with God, with the Absolute. But that breath of God, although we all breathe it, in theory then we should all be godly. We should all have this Christ effect that reflects in our actions, in our emotions, and in our thoughts. But yet, we look around and we barely see that. What we see and observe mostly with people around us, especially the leaders, politicians, bad taste in my mouth. Spiritual leaders in like big mega churches and really just in general, also bad taste in my mouth. You guys are not teaching people what you need to teach them. What you are doing is you're leading them by the nose, here, there, and everywhere, just so that they can stay convinced that what we see in the physical is all there is. You really should pull up your socks, Mr. Spiritual Leader and Mr. Politician. Really, you guys are quite a disappointment at the moment. But let me not linger on that, even though I do want to make a point here. Obviously, I am a big fan of Candace Owens. And it sounds like I'm going off, but I'm doing a bit of a weave here. Bob and weave, bob and weave. All right, so I'm a big fan of Candace Owens. So Candace and Tucker and Michael and Tucker, if you haven't phoned Candace yet and told her that I'm speaking to her and about her and I'm here to help, you really should pick up the phone and please just call her and tell her, please watch this weird chick from South Africa. She has a message. And I do. Candace Owens is going through a tough time where her life is being threatened because what is it that she does that upsets people so much? This woman is like a pit bull. Once she gets hold of something, she will rip and tear through all and every single illusion until she reaches that truth, the truth behind it all that is hidden. And, it's just hidden from us as humanity, and they hide it from us for a reason. Because as soon as we realize there is this hidden current that exists before the physical expression, until we realize that, they can delude us and elude us as much as they want to. Candace is a prime example of somebody who is a journalist and who really goes into the illusions and destroys it all until she finds the truth. Whether or not she makes a couple of wrong turns in between, that is irrelevant. She is courageous. And what she will learn here today is she will understand better how is it that these hidden currents are influencing the physical world. You, Tucker, you will learn what was this demonic force that got hold of you during sleep and that actually manifested scratch marks on your body in your waking physical life awareness. What was that, Tucker? Today you will learn what that is. What are these orbs that we see that many people call UFOs? What are these energetic orbs that we see and where do they come from? Do UFOs really travel light years to come here, or do they come from a different plane of existence? Again, today we will discover what is the truth behind these events. And although I will not be able to give you the full extent of it, I am not here to do that. What I am here to do is to give you a baseline, a structure, and a map of these 7 planes of existence. And once you have that map, you go and do the work. I am not here to do the work for you. I am here to provide a map. And today, although we have 7 planes of existence, this map of the 7 planes is so detailed and intricate. All we will be observing today and exploring today will be the first 3 planes of existence. And these 3 planes, being reflective planes, are then referable, and then we can link them to what Tucker and Michael were discussing here about the shooter looking into the mirror, and what reflects is a demonic force. So we're going to be linking all of those dots at the end of the day, and where we will end up is with prayer that has serious mojo. You see, if you look at prayer, and now I'm back with Candace, I want to pray for Candace. I want her and her family to be safe, because I think the work she does is beautiful, critical, important. And a courageous individual like that has honestly earned a prayer from us as humanity. And why is it that prayer has power? Prayer has power because we fall still, we take a bit of a back seat, and we bow before forces greater than us. We bow before God and ask for that guidance. And even though that is gorgeous and it has an effect, it is still only a surface level knowledge that we pray with. But as soon as I have explained the first 3 planes of existence, there's 7, I'm going to explain the first 3. As soon as I have explained the first 3 planes of existence, our knowledge regarding prayer is upgraded, and it's got a va-va-voom effect, and our mojo will be so much greater that not only will it keep Candace and her family safe and sound, it will stir greater spiritual effects in general for humanity itself, because we're going to come together, we're going to fix our attention to one individual, one intention, and one thought form. Once we do that in prayer, we begin to operate the sacred physics that governs all of existence. And you must understand there is a whole a bucket of spiritual laws that governs this existence. And without our knowledge of it, we remain slaves to the physical expression of it. But so let's go and gain knowledge about these laws, the spiritual laws that sustains, supports, and evolves the very existence that we find ourselves in today. And we are back. All right, so let's start by reading a Bible verse, referring to the Bible when we go and look at what is it about a mirror image or reflection. What does the Bible say about it? So interestingly enough, I first started looking for, in the back of the Bible, you have references and words, and it shows you where in the Bible these words appear. So I went in there, and interestingly enough, there's nothing there about reflection. But there are a lot of times where they refer to a mirror. And Tucker, you're going to love this, okay, also, because this is where your verse that you referred to when you had your interview with Megan Kelly. You said, but you know, what do we really know? Because there in Chronicles, it says, but the greatest of all these is love. Well, okay, what does that mean? Today I'm going to show you what that means, Tucker. Like I say, Tucker, you have beautiful observations, but then you get lost. You don't seem to have a 1, 2, 3 step into finding proper answers for those observations. Nothing wrong with that. That's why I'm here. This is my duty. Okay, so in the Bible, we are at 1 Corinthians 13 verse 12. Let me read it. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know fully, just as I also have been fully known. But now abide faith, hope, love, these 3, but the greatest of these is love. Now I read that, and like you, Tucker, I thought, what? Ek verstaan nie. I didn't understand exactly what that meant. So I don't blame you for feeling a little bit confused by that verse. And this is why the Vedas are so critical in the cross-pollination. They've gone into detail about what it means to look in a mirror now and see dimly. But then to look in a mirror and see face to face. What on earth does that mean? And to know in part, and then to know fully. What does it mean? I'm going to show you. So, before you can understand that verse fully, what you need to understand is at least gain a little bit of knowledge as to how existence operates. And existence is very much a reflective operating system. So let's go look at the 7 planes of existence, and then I will go into detail with the first 3. But let me first just give you a layout of the first 7, of the 7, not the first 7, there's only 7. 7, okay. So what we have is we have the physical plane, we have the emotional plane, then you have your mental plane. Are you surprised? No. As I play it out, you think, yeah, obvious. But have you ever looked at it as a plane, as a level of existence, a degree of reality? Maybe not so much. But this is what we are doing. So the first 3, your physical, your emotional, and your mental plane. Then let's go look at the rest. You have a Buddhic, Atmic, monadic, and an absolute plane. You see why I'm not going into that just yet? Well, don't you worry. We are going to explore all 7 of them. But the reason why I'm not going into the rest is even the names of the planes are Sanskrit words. It is very detail orientated. And you cannot dive into that part of the 7 planes until you have actually understood the first 3 planes. So I'm not here to confuse you, so I'm not going to go into the other 4. What we are doing as humanity is we are going to learn, grasp, and integrate the first 3 planes of existence. And that would be your physical, your emotional, and your mental plane. So let's start at the physical plane. But this little camera of mine has now popped and all you see is my head. So let's just fix this okay a bit. Do you think it's going to go back again? Stay. It has stayed. Let's move on. Okay, the physical plane. Let's start there. So when we look at the physical plane, it seems pretty simple, right? Cause and effect. I touch a hot plate, I burn. I jump off a building, I fall, drop, and die. I hit myself, and there's a reaction. Its cause and effect is very simple and obvious. And that's why when you go look at that image of the shooter looking in a mirror and looking at a demon reflecting back at him, what is simple about that is we, as the physical, we know when we look in a mirror, there's a reflection, cause and effect. But what the shooter was seeing was a demonic force. And that refers to something unseen, a more subtle aspect of our physical being. And this is exactly what the Vedas teach us. They say the physical body is actually consists of 2. You have the visible part. These are your atoms, your cells, your organs, and the physical body that you have. But then we also have a subtle body. And this is the unseen body. This is the current of life. So when you have doctors, when you flatline and they take the thingy-majings and they go, clear, boom, right? What are they doing? They're pumping a current into us. Why? Because we have a current of life that runs through our bodies. This is like an electrical current that keeps us alive. Remove that current and everything falls away. Life comes to an end. So this is your subtle body. This is what the Vedas call your etheric double. Now, when you go look at a bit of woo-woo people, like psychics what they see when they speak about an aura is they see this etheric current of the individual. It expresses as color because it's interpenetrating. It's not just inside, it is unseen, but it's interpenetrating. So it moves inside the body and it expresses a little bit outside the body as what you would know as an aura. But this is also, by the way, for the white coats, it is in the etheric body, in your etheric double, where your epigenetics operate. It hasn't quite come into the physical, but the potential is there. Stir that potential in the unseen world of your etheric double and it expresses, right? So that is what's happening in your physical body. So don't be fooled by what we see as a physical expression. The physical expression, me sitting here speaking to you, is but the outcome of what has already been generated in my etheric double. What you see in my body is generated by my electric current. This is why body language exists, why it's a science, and why your body seems to betray you when you lie. Because when you lie, it clashes with what the truth is of your subtle body, your thoughts, your feelings. What is that? That your thoughts and your feelings, all of that pockets in your etheric double until it expresses formless into form. And that is why you get people with a bit of a twitch when they start lying. No, I'm not lying. We can all see you lying. Your body is telling us. And that is why, and that the body is telling us because it has two aspects. It has the physical seen body and it operates also with your unseen body. Everything that expresses physically is first and foremost generated in the etheric body. So that is how your formless moves into form. That is also how we leave residue in an area. Often you will find, or not so often, but sometimes you will find you walk into a place or a room and it just feels icky. Let's think about Epstein's house. Huh? We just look at the videos and we're like, oh, that's icky, creepy crawlies. That is your etheric double feeling the creepy crawlies. The etheric residue is left within a room. So your etheric residue has an impact even on other people moving into a space. They can feel it, they observe it. Some realize it, others don't. And that's why sometimes you'll just walk into a room, you may not realize there's this creepiness in a room, but all of a sudden you just feel pissy. You just feel, angry or depressed or whatever. And that is because the ether actually carries the residue of the people who move in and out of it. That residue comes from your etheric double. There we go. Does that feel a little bit better? Do you begin to feel, oh, okay, this crazy, freaky chick maybe has a point. I have a lot more points. But let's just stick there. I can go into a lot more detail about the etheric body and your physical body, but attention span is an issue. So let me hop on to the next one then. And this is your emotional body. Now, this is fascinating. And Tucker, this is exactly where your dream and that experience of the demonic force holding on to you, spike your ears. This is going to help you understand that. So, our emotional body or our emotional plane is critical. And it is quite bombastic, I would say. We feel it and it's there. Like my face, if I feel something, my face betrays me. You can see when I'm upset. You can see when I'm pissy. You can see when I'm emotional. My face just says it all, right? Because I'm feeling the emotions and I'm feeling them deeply. So you had this guy who was the shooter looking in the mirror. He was looking at this demonic force. Makes us wonder, what was feeding that demonic force? So your emotional plane is also known as the astral plane. Aha! Does that ring a bell with a few people there? Christians, please don't freak out. I know you are taught that as soon as you begin to hear and learn about things like from the astral plane, you begin to worry that demons are going to attack you. The astral plane is called the astral plane from other knowledge, from other scripture and other things from other cultures, if I can put it to you that way. But what you will know it as, and that you can relate to as a Christian, is this is where your spiritual warfare occurs. You believe in that, don't you? Yeah. Tucker, I often hear you say, it's a spiritual war, it's a spiritual war. Okay, Tucker, it's a spiritual war. Where's your armor? Where's your sword? What are you doing when you walk into that spiritual war, in that spiritual realm? You don't know nonsense. You don't know anything. And this is the biggest issue that we as humanity have. We, and Taka, and I'm pointing, you don't know anything. I mean, I also, up until 2 months ago, I didn't understand the astral plane properly. Right? I was looking at other things. But in studying the astral plane, I realized that this is our Achilles heel as humanity. Without the knowledge of the astral plane, we are just slaves to the cause and effect being played out in the physical. So we really need to learn about the astral plane. I really need the Christians not to run away now. Please relate to it as the spiritual plane where you do your spiritual warfare. When I was 15 or 16, somewhere around there, these are the classes I used to give. I used to teach in church. I used to teach grown-ups because I'm whack. So I used to teach grown-ups how to do spiritual warfare through prayer. And although I was a very good teacher and I did my research well, I couldn't go and look at information that referred to the astral plane, because even then I believed that means I'm opening a door for demons. No. You are opening a door for demonic forces to enter you by walking around without knowledge, with ignorance of who you are as a human being. As soon as you gain the knowledge, Tucker, that's when you begin to put your armor on and you get a sword that pierces through the illusion to the point of truth, what is real. And now we need to sharpen that sword so that we can begin to do proper spiritual warfare. And that application will be at the end when we pray for Candace. Yo, my mother is going to fall on her back when she sees this video. I'm telling you. All right. So I want my book because I don't want to miss anything out. Because when it comes to the emotional plane, this astral plane, we cannot continue to operate in ignorance. So let me tell you why and what effect it has. Okay. I'm just going to pause before I go into this one. So hang 10. I'm going to go for a smoke. You want to go for a smoke? Let's go for a smoke. Tucker, go chew on your thingy. I don't know what that thing is, but chew on your thingy. Let's go for a smoke. We're going to come back and then we are going to tackle the emotional plane. This is only the second plane we are tackling, right? But we need a moment. So take 5. And I'm back. All right, the astral plane. This is the second plane. So the astral plane, what is it? The astral plane is basically pure energy in motion. And what it does, it reflects back at you, amplified, the emotions that stir inside of you. The astral plane also has no morality. So whether you have dark thoughts or thoughts of light and beauty and love, this astral plane doesn't give two hoots. It will reflect it back at you, amplified. So this is why we need to have responsible thinking and feeling, because even if you look at the physical world, whatever mask we may have in the physical world, we all have our own masks, right? But whatever mask we have in the physical world disappears in the astral. So the astral reflects your truth as it is. What you feel and what you think will create an entity in the astral world, and that entity will reflect back at you, amplified. What does that mean? All right, it means that when you are angry, it bleeds out of you in the astral world. When you are stirring, resentment. There we go. Sorry, second language. Forget a word every now and then. All right, so when you stir resentment, what happens? Conflict is reflected back at you, amplified. All right, so when you, Tucker, when it comes to your dream that you had, I would wonder what feelings and thoughts you had the day and the night of that experience. I want to know what happened there, because what happened in your thoughts and your feelings is what activated this experience in your sleep during your dream state. And why do I keep referring to dreams when I talk about the astral plane? One beautiful thing about spirituality is that I've noticed we always get a physical hint, just a little bit of a hint of how things work in the subtle unseen world. And our dream state is that clue to show us that even though we are in the physical body, there is, when we sleep, even though we remain alive, we're still here, but during sleep, our physical body drops down and it goes into hibernation state, and something else takes over as we go into a dream state. Once that dream state is complete, we come back into our physical state. So there's not a disconnect. There's just a push-pull between these two planes. And our physical experience of sleeping and dreaming is that clue we are given about subtle aspects that are in and around us and within our existence. And the dream state is just that. So if you're struggling to understand the planes of existence, think about how it is when you go to sleep and you dream. You are still here, but there are other forces active and at play when you go into a bit more of a back step. You drop your state. You go to sleep a little bit. Okay. So the astral plane will reflect your emotions back at you, amplified. So this is why you really need to be careful. And it is your emotions that become the architect of what we think about. And it is our thoughts that become the builder of our reality. Are you beginning to see the links? So what do we have? We have our physical body with cause and effect in daily life. But we also know we have a subtle aspect to that body, our etheric double. And this is what expresses us in the physical, like we said with body language. Then we went into the emotional body or the emotional plane, and we learned that that is the astral plane. And our emotions reflect into the astral plane, and it gets mirrored back at us, amplified. So be careful of your feelings. And those feelings, those emotions that we have, that is the architect. It is the design of what we think about. And once we begin to think about things, we start building things. We start building our reality. That is why it is said that emotion is the architect, but thought is the builder. Thoughts become things. How does that happen? Well, you have this interlinked connection between these three planes. But most of all, we are going to look at now your thinking and feeling. If you have your thinking and feeling at least measured, that reflection that comes back at you doesn't cause havoc in your life. It is an echo. So when does this sound familiar? Are you picking up that kind of sounds like karma? That's exactly it. Karma is not an exact science. You can't go into the matter of things and say, okay, karma, we're going to go 2 + 2 gives us 22. There's no such thing. It is an echo. It is not a precise science, but it is a godly science. It is one that makes sure that there remains balance in the oneness of all. So when you begin to build things with your mind, this is also what is written in the Bible. In the Bible it says, what you think you become. Exactly. Why? Because our thoughts and our feelings are the architect and the builder of what we experience as reality. Now, if we begin to understand that, then as much as what we reflect in a negative way into the astral plane, we can also reflect positivity into the astral plane. And that positivity will then reflect back at us and mirror amplified. So what are some positive things that we can then push and feel into the astral plane that will make sure that the echo of karma, what comes back at us, is of a sacred state and not of a demonic state? This guy who was the shooter, who was looking into the mirror, seeing a demonic form, what happened there was he had an emotion. His emotions became the feeder. It fed his thoughts, and his thoughts became real in the astral plane to such a degree that he observed a demonic force that is now in control over him. You must understand the power of thought. These thoughts that we have is not only with an individual. Think about apartheid. I am a white Afrikaans South African. I come from a military family, Air Force. What do you think I was raised as? What do you think my racist ideas were? And this is of no fault to my parents. I do not blame them, other than the fact that they didn't understand the 7 planes of existence. So what happened with my parents? They were commugulated here by the brain, the same way we were all commugulated by the brain during COVID. If you want to know how apartheid happened, just look at the recipe of COVID and you will understand how that happened, how apartheid happened. All the signs that said whites only and blacks here, very official, guys. Those signs looked so official. And then you had coppers and security guards making sure you understand that these things are official. And you, whitey, you better go in there. And you, the other one, you must go into that. Very official, very serious. I won't even question it as a child. As adults, they were confused because what expressed in the physical, my parents and all alike, Mina, me also, we all took the physical as reality, and we never bothered to ask what is the undercurrent of what we see, what is the cause behind the effect. And the cause of apartheid, the cause of COVID, is that we were deluded and eluded by what was happening in the physical because we didn't have knowledge about the astral and how these things reflect. And so all that negativity reflected back onto us as a society. And as a society with, let's say, white people in South Africa, we created with our thoughts and our feelings a spiritual, what do they call it, an egregore? Is that what? It's a big monster, right, that sits onto a nation. Think about a nation that's having that at the moment, right, that's warring and genociding. Do you think the individuals make that physical choice every day to hate and to kill? No, they don't. What they are, however, is completely deluded by the physical. They think it's real. They don't even realize that they are being manipulated. So, and they are being manipulated, yes, by government and by politicians and by deluded spiritual leaders. Whoa, don't let me go off on that tangent again. They are being misguided by that. But all of these thoughts, actions, feelings that they stir with the nonsense and the propaganda, it's not just happening in the physical. That is actually creating a demonic force that will sit onto that nation until that nation begins to clear the etheric and astral planes of their existence. Once you begin to clear that, this demonic force will lose energy. It is really, I'm not speaking metaphorically. I'm speaking real deal stuff here. What you think, you become. And these forces have an impact on us. So just like any other force or any expression that we see in our lives, the more you feed it, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger these types of demonic forces come, they will start actually overpowering and controlling their very creator, the individual. And that is what happened with the Minneapolis shooter. His thoughts and his feelings created this demonic force to control over its own creator. And that is why this evilness actually expressed. Is that who this guy was in truth? Hell no. But he never realized the power of his thoughts and feelings. Had he understood what I'm teaching here, that there is a oneness of all, and that he must think responsibly. Think responsibly. If you, Tim Pool, that guy with the beanie who's swearing at Candace the way he is, you should be embarrassed. What does your mother and your father think? You should be embarrassed to speak like that, number one, for everybody to see. Number two, to a woman like that. Sis, man. But I can't blame this guy, because this guy has clearly built so much resentment towards Candace that he has created a force that is now overpowering him, and that is why he speaks this way. Not for a moment do I think that this is who this guy is in truth. Who this man is in truth is right? So when you begin to look at these reflective forces and you then consider the breath and the name of God, how do we make sure that the breath and the name of God remains pure and doesn't get influenced or overpowered by our own stupid thoughts and feelings? How do we make sure that roadway, that path for God and the Christ effect to move through us, how do we make sure that stays clean and clear? A little bit of housekeeping will do the job. You see, it is a mirror. It really is a mirror. It reflects. And all the physicists just went, I can't believe you just said that. If you are, by the way, a quantum string theory physicist type of white coat guy, if you pick up what I'm putting down here, it will give you a lot of direction as to how to pursue your profession. You will understand quantum string theory and how all of these planes interact and reflect upon each other, how all of that happens, and you will have a much greater sense of orientation, and then you can pursue your science. It will really take you places. But I'm not a physicist. I'm just a spiritual teacher, if you will, although I have a bad opinion about them. I must call myself something else. Freaky philosopher. That's why I called myself freaky philosopher. All right. So, how do we keep this mirror clean? Housekeeping. And this is why it's important to have disciplines in your life. Discipline truly equals freedom. And what disciplines am I talking about? Simple. Discipline of spiritual practices. If you're somebody who goes to church, go to church. But go to church and take what that pastor, and hopefully he's not an idiot. I really hope your pastor is not an idiot. Not very confident in that. Anyways, so take what you learn that Sunday and apply it through the week. Learn, fall still. Make sure you do your prayers at night. And most importantly of all, that will really clean that mirror so that God reflects properly and you don't get conmugulated here in the astral planes and you start reflecting nonsense. Clean that mirror through acts of service without a demand of outcome. This is a very good way of keeping your soul and this mirror clean and clear so that God can reflect properly through you. Do acts of service for people. If you see an old auntie struggling to carry her bags, help her. If you see hungry people, now I'm in South Africa, I see a lot of hungry people on the corners. I can't help every single one. So I'm not talking about that. What I am saying is that you can, however, it doesn't mean I don't do anything. It's just I isolate a certain area where I do serve, where I do help to feed the poor, or where I do help to nurture the young so that they can be guided into our future. Because right now their future looks like robotics and they're going to think a robot is better than they are. All right? That's not right. So my service to the youngsters is to tell them you are so much more than AI. Nothing about you is artificial and everything about you is sacred. And if you can gain access to this knowledge, a sacred technology is activated. There is a reason why this knowledge has been suppressed and why it's kept away from us and why you needed a crazy South African chick to come and combine the Vedas and the Bible. I needed to walk the path I did, being kicked out of church and all sorts of other things, in order to gain this knowledge so that I can now perform my duty to show you the beauties I have discovered about this life, this planet, and about myself. So go do acts of service. Help people. But don't go now and, okay, auntie, I'm going to go carry your groceries and I load it in the car and you wait for a tip. That's not service. Or I put it in the auntie's car and the auntie doesn't even say thank you. Now I become pissy. That's not service. You do service without a demand for a specific outcome. You do not demand a thank you. What you are doing is I'm performing an act of service. I'm being kind to somebody. I'm showing love to somebody. A stranger or somebody here with me. Go run a bath for your wife. Acts of service. Make him a sandwich. Candace, we love you, Candace. So make him a sandwich. Acts of service. It is a very potent way of keeping this mirror within you clean and clear so that the force of God shines through you. And when that mirror is clean and God shines through you, we call that the Christ effect. So, did I forget about the Bible? But I had to go through all of that, the first three planes. The physical with its two bodies. Then I had to go into the astral, right? And then I had to go into the mental plane. You must also remember about the mental plane. We have choices. The mental plane has two levels. The one level is your baseline. This is what we are taught as children. So let's use apartheid and racism as a good reference. So I was taught by society, media, school, and church, by the way, to hate another person because of the color of their skin. My parents may have reinforced it, but that was only reinforced because they were taught it by society. We were taught to hate somebody. All right. So that was my baseline. And we all have, when it comes to the mental plane, this dual roadway. You can either think about the world the way your conditioning teaches you. If you are in Israel, what is it your conditioning is teaching you? Genocide is okay. Genocide is not okay. But you are conditioned to think it's okay. But what you don't realize is that there is a higher mental plane. So you have the dual way. I have my baseline, society, and my conditioning as a child, but then I have a sacred way of thinking. And it's in the sacred mental plane where you are divinely inspired. Do you want to know how Nikola Tesla and Einstein and all those guys got their wonderful ideas? Well, they got it from this sacred mental way of thinking. And what happens there is you as an individual actually take a bit of a back seat, in your thinking. You take a back seat and you allow for the God force to come through you. And that is when you receive inspiration. This is why I get pissy, very pissy, when I hear airy-fairy people, psychics, anybody spiritual that's not Christian, but more spiritual, when you talk about, oh, I got a download last night, guys. I'm already switching off. I'm not listening to you. Why? Because I don't get a download. Do I look like a computer? I don't look like a computer. I definitely don't speak like one. My face doesn't change like one. I am a human being. And because of the planes of existence, I know there's no such thing as a download when it comes to me, but I am inspired by sacred forces. God Himself inspires my breath and the way I speak and act. If I choose to think with that higher mind. I don't always, obviously, we all have our knee-jerk reactions. I especially get a knee-jerk reaction when I talk about spiritual leaders and politicians. I have knee-jerk reactions. But we should, as humanity, when you start thinking stupid thoughts, resentment, Tim Poole, come on, this is not who you are. Don't think with that baseline. Change your thoughts. Change it. Go into a higher state. Fall still. Go to church. Pray. And you will see automatically your thought forms will be elevated. Raise yourself by yourself, Tim Poole, and stop being a nunu. Sis man. Anyways, okay. So, I haven't forgotten about the Bible. We now realize that even on the mental plane, we have free will. Are we going to go with a higher thinking, a sacred thinking? Or are we just going to remain a numb nut and think with our baseline and never ever evolve from this current state? You have choices. So now, let's go back to the Bible. We're going to read that verse again. And then we're going to see if we have now gained enough insight so that we can actually understand what is said in this Bible verse. Hold on to your hats because everything is going to become very clear right now. So let's go read it again. It says, 1 Corinthians verse 12 and 13. I will read 13 also. So, for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know fully, just as I also have been fully known. But now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Have you observed the deeper insight? I'm going to go into it, but I'm sure a few of you out there have already noticed, pennies dropping. In case you didn't get it, let me help you drop that penny. Let's go through it. And what we are going to do, we're drawing in the relativities of the 7 planes of existence. But we're only looking at the first three. That would be your physical, your emotional, and your mental plane. Cool. So, for now we see in a mirror dimly. That means I am now, as I'm breathing God's name, my mirror is dirty. I'm a dirty little mirror. And that's why I see dimly. The shooter at Minneapolis, his mirror was full of muck. This boy, what he was thinking and the rhythm that his thoughts created, all of that was hectic. His mirror was dirty. And that's why he saw this demonic force, right? Now, for now we see in a mirror dimly. But then, face to face. This verse is written funny. It should act, if you flip it around a little bit, it makes a bit more sense. So I'm going to flip it and then you'll see. I'm not leaving anything out. I'm just rearranging it. Okay? For now we see in a mirror dimly. Now I know in part. Right? I see in a mirror dimly, so I know myself, my true self and who I am in part. The shooter thought he was a demonic force. He knew himself in part. His mirror was dim and dirty. Right. What happens when we clean our mirror? Let's see. But then face to face, then I shall know fully, just as I also have been fully known. Moxon! That makes a whole lot of sense. But then we see face to face. In other words, now I've cleaned my mirror. Now I see myself for who I am in truth. Face to face. Right? And I shall be known as I have been known in truth. So as God's name is being breathed by me, it's a push-pull, a rise and a fall. This is how God knows me. God knows my insides and my outsides because I breathe His name. So this is where He says, then I shall know fully, just as also I have been fully known. You are fully known by God. And the only way you can fully know is if you clean this mirror. Then you will know fully. All right. Makes a lot more sense. I didn't know. I really didn't understand that verse until I dived into the 7 planes. And I'm sure you feel the same. So let's go read that last verse. And then Tucker, this is where you are going to gain clarity about why love is so important. Okay. But now abide faith, hope, love. These 3. But the greatest of these is love. There the Bible is referring to metaphysics. Like I said, the 7 planes of existence and how it reflects back at you is not an exact science. It echoes back at you. It's a little bit wobbly. It's energetic. Right? So how do I make sure that what reflects back at me is of a good quality, of a pure quality? And that is where faith, hope, and love comes in. Those are your guides for the metaphysics of this very existence. If you live in faith and you hope for the best and you love yourself, please, you cannot give what you have not given yourself. So you must love yourself before you can truly love those outside of you, because we always start close and then we move out. And that is why the greatest of all is love. Love metaphysically is so potent and it's such a pointed sword that it will pierce through all the illusions and it will pinpoint the truth of what we observe. And this is why I have so much respect for Candace. She is piercing through the illusions. And what is guiding her? Her love for Charlie. Nothing else. So what if she makes... personally, I haven't seen her going wrong. And whenever she makes a tiny wee mistake, like recently with the airplanes, or it was It was the military ranks and that type of stuff. She comes back and she tells you, because for a courageous explorer of truth, we never mind being wrong. Because when you are piercing through illusion to reach truth, it is not about am I right or am I wrong. It is about what is real and what is an illusion. I can be wrong many times on my way to truth. But because I keep my mirror clean, I will spot that wrong turn quickly enough and I will self-correct and continue my pursuit for truth. Will I now, just because I went a little bit wrong, you go, oh, I give up. I give up. Let me just be a slave. No, I'm going to self-correct. I'm going to learn. I'm going to observe what are the indicators of this thing that was far from truth. Why did I bite into it and why did I follow it? Oh, it misled me in this way. It misled me in that way. I'm learning. Thank you. I'm going to put those lessons in my back pocket and I'm going to go for it again. Candace does this and she has my uttermost respect for doing it. So, that is why Corinthians says, the greatest of all these, faith, hope, and love, is love. Let love be your guide. Let love help you serve others. It will keep your mirror clean and clear. And that is the way that we will see the Christ effect pushing through us. So now I am ending this podcast, but let us end it with responsible thinking and responsible prayer. Please, tonight, let us all pray for Candace and her family, for God to protect them, for God to guide her in her knowledge and her pursuit for truth, and let God bring us all together. Let Him unite us in prayer. And as we all then, with intention and thought, this is what feeds everything in reality. Intention and thought, the architect, the builder, and then reality. The architect, the builder, and then reality. One more time, the architect, the builder, and then reality. This is how it operates. So, the architect, let us pray for Candace. The builder, we're going to do it together. We are going, when we do it, we will be focusing on the astral plane, knowing that the astral plane will mirror our intentions, our thoughts and feelings. It will mirror it back at us, amplify it. So whatever we are feeling with love in protection of Candace and her family will get serious mojo. Oh, it's going to get squeak, squeak, squeak. It's going to get pumped up and it's going to be reflected back onto the planet, onto Candace and her family. And she will be protected in ways that will blow her hair back. And how are we going to do it? We are going to do it because we love humanity. We realize that there's a spiritual evolution at play. And we are going to come together in prayer and practice it. I can write a prayer, but it's not even about the words. It's about that intention. Everything is fed by our emotions and our thoughts. If you don't feed the things, they will die. So the more we feel our love and our request for protection of Candace, feel it deeply, fall still, feel it oozing through your etheric body and let it express into your physical existence and pray. Pray with love, faith and hope. And then we will meet the next time. And I promise you, Candace is going to observe this. She is going to come back to us and say, smoking jelly beans, you would never believe how protected I am. Because we have now gained knowledge. So, that is it. But just as a note for our next podcast, It's going to be far simpler, the next one. The next one is not as in-depth as this podcast was, because the topic for the next podcast is, what is the difference between a human and an animal? It sounds like a stupid question, but then I see children running around, and I'm not talking about 3-year-olds who make believe. I'm talking about 7-year-olds and parents buying them dog balls and flipping masks, encouraging a child to think of themselves as an animal. You are not an animal as much as you are not a robot. Okay? We are human. What is a human? That is our guiding question. And next podcast, we are going to differentiate between what is a human and what makes us different to the animal kingdom. Sounds pretty interesting. That's going to be a quick one. I will try and do it before I go on holiday. And maybe I feel a little inspired by my higher mental plane. And maybe I even do a podcast from my holiday destination. Who knows what's going to happen? But for now, with faith, hope, and love, I will see you next time. God bless.